Subscribe now.
Good evening, everyone. How you doing? Tim and Dana's here. Welcome to the Bigfoot Influencers podcast. We're recording episode 4. My name is Tim Halloran, and I want to thank each of you for tuning in today, and wanted to welcome the whole group here. I'm with my co-host Dana. Dana, you want to say hello?
Hey guys, it's Dana and I'm here and we're doing our 4th episode. Super excited to have our guest on tonight. It's Marc Dewerth. Tim, why don't you tell them a little bit about Marc? Sorry, we have like a little fly here. Fruit flies.
Yeah, so thrilled to have Marc Dewerth here in the studio tonight. Marc was featured in my book, which I'm super appreciative of that, and he's a big help for that. He's been researching Bigfoot, I guess, for approximately 30 years, mostly in Ohio, but he's been around the country. He is the Ohio curator for the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. He runs and organizes the world famous Ohio Bigfoot Conference, which is where we first met Marc. We may talk a little bit about that tonight when we pull him in. And that being said, let's welcome Mr. Marc Dewerth to the studio.
Hey, Marc.
What's going on? How are you?
How you doing?
Good. Just cleaning all my Pampered Chef right now. What about you?
We just finished dinner. Oh my God, what is that?
My favorite spatula ever.
Do we still have that?
Yeah, I hope so. It comes in a 3-pack.
Okay, I don't even know what's going on in the grilling world with Pampered Chef and the food chopper. Yay.
So
just so everybody knows, I'm also a Pampered Chef consultant, not just a rock star podcaster. And Marc is probably my number one Pampered Chef fan for sure. At least you're the number one male.
Okay, that sounds better.
But you know what? Men love it too, because men love to cook. And so it's not just a woman thing. And so, so that's my side gig. And Marc is my big supporter of that. So I thought it'd be really cool, Marc, if we also talked about how we actually met you. Do you remember how you met us?
I remember exactly how.
Yeah, I hear this.
Oh my God, let me hear this story. Because we have our side and you have your side.
I remember being in the lobby at the Salt Fork Lodge, and I looked over and Tim was weeping over on the leather chair over the side over something about the towels weren't perfectly pressed for him or something. And what it was is we were getting ready, I believe, to head over to we do like a Thursday night party at the event. It's just kind of like a, hey, get together, whoever shows up, come on over to the cabin. We got food and, I won't say adult drinks, but drinks of many sorts. And you guys were standing there checking in. And I think I said something, hey, you guys here for the conference? And one of you said for the first time or something. And I said, well, we're having this get together here in like about an hour and a half over at this cabin. Feel free to stop by. And, I just figured just to be nice to new people and everything like that. And of course, when Tim heard food, he was there, and the rest was history. And so, like I say, you guys were in the right place at the right time, because I'm usually not cordial or anything like that. So
yes, you are. That's not true, Marc. You're super cordial. Yeah, that was my first time at any Bigfoot conference, and so when we got invited to that party, and Dr. Jeff was there, and Cliff and Bobo. I was just like completely starstruck. So I was like, oh my God, this is my best day ever. I was so excited.
I saw Marc Dewerth and was starstruck.
and I had Jeff with me checking him in. And Jess, now I even remember more. Yes.
Yeah.
You were all excited and everything like that. And
Dr. Jeff, whatever. No, I still love him. I'm still starstruck for sure. But yeah, that was super cool. That was super cool. A super cool moment for sure.
Yeah, I think that was back in 2016.
No, I think it was I think it was 2019.
Mm-hmm.
2019.
Oh, maybe not.
No, it was after 17. Yeah, it was definitely after 17. So it's probably 18 or 19. But no, But I remember most definitely a Jeff Meldrup groupie or whatever it was, and so there you go.
it was a great first conference, and it was awesome. You know, that's where our friendship blossomed. So we're like, we can't miss an Ohio Bigfoot conference. So
And we're totally going to get into the conference and you know, as we dive into the podcast a little bit. But first, if you're good with it, Mark, we want to ask a few personal questions, not too personal, but I want the audience to, you know, get the chance to get to know you, Marc Dewerth, a little bit. Is that all right with you?
Ooh, there we go.
Yeah.
Ooh. So Mark, where did you actually grow up?
I grew up in the west side of Cleveland, born at
Okay.
Fairview Hospital in 1969.
Mhm.
And we lived in Fairview until going into fourth grade, which then my parents built a house in Westlake, Ohio, which was once again west side of Cleveland, and ended up going all through school through Westlake school systems. It, you know, obviously graduated in '87, and you know, and I like Ohio, always have, and it's, you know, even though I've moved out of state a few times, I've always come back because I like four seasons, and I like the people pretty much is the big reason.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've like recently become like a climate change doomer. So like we have to like go live somewhere. Mark's like, oh my God, we have to go live somewhere like in the 45th parallel in order to survive like the next 5, 10, 20 years. And so Ohio, I think, fits in that category, right?
Yeah, especially where I live in north central Ohio near the lake.
Yeah.
We have 4 solid seasons, so you'll have a nice summer where it gets warm. You have Lake Erie to go swim in, and then you can get very cold, snowy winters. Our falls are beautiful, and our springs are
Right.
beautiful. And I still remember, you know, I remember bringing Bob Gimlin to a nature preserve during the conference weekend one year, and Bob's like, I've never seen so much green in my life as he was standing in there, because it was so much greener than it is out west, and it's an amazing sight to see.
So Mark, you got to do me a favor. If you start seeing some like, you know, houses pop up, we want something like with like water view. We're thinking about our retirement years. So maybe something with one floor. So keep your eye open for us.
I will, but I will tell you, I've noticed this, that the one level floors are so hard to find. They, as fast as you put a ranch on the market,
They're
someone is
gone.
swooping it up. And my father, he has a very large house in Westlake, and you know, he's talked about selling it, but he's never been able to wanting to pull the trigger because he's trying to find like a single floor, say even a condo. You can't
Right.
find them, and they won't build them either because they'd rather build 2 on one lot, not 1 on one lot, because they can put 2 double floors rather than one ranch, because a ranch takes up a big footprint.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, that makes sense. So
So,
I'm going to pull something up here on the
ooh,
screen, Mark, and
ooh,
What is it?
one of your interests, it's more than an interest, but I want you to explain or share with the audience, what is Big Trees, Ohio?
oh, Big Trees, Ohio started just due to all my hiking and searching the Ohio woods for Bigfoot evidence. And just over time, I would always find these big trees out in the middle of the forest, in the middle of the woods, down by creek valleys, river valleys. And I always just loved taking photos, so I would take photos of them. And then I'd post them just on my personal Facebook page, and people would say, oh, that's a neat place to hike. And then I'd get people that would message me and say, hey, that big tree, where did you find that at? And I'd be like, well, why? And they go, and you know, they went on and said, well, you know, there's like competitions for who, you know, the biggest trees in the state, the biggest trees in the country, and things like that. And so I just, you know, like, oh, that's interesting. So I dug a little deeper into the Ohio Department of Natural Resources through the Ohio Division of Forestry, and I saw they did have a big tree program. And I started looking down on the list on these trees and what the biggest specimens were. I'm like, oh, I got one bigger than that. I got one bigger than that. I got one bigger than that. I think I knew where they were and things like that. So I started actively photographing them and measuring them. And then one of my other friends, she suggested I do a Facebook page. And instead of, you know, because I had an Ohio Bigfoot Conference Facebook page, why not do a Big Trees Ohio? So I did that. I think it was May of 17 is when I started it. And matter of fact, I mean, we're going to be coming up, you know, we're 5 years now, and we have like over 25,000 followers on Facebook.
I follow you.
Thank you. Instagram, we have 10,000 followers on Instagram. And
Yeah, that's amazing.
so now through the years, I've brought a lot of interns in and that have helped me and assist me in measuring the trees and things like that. And I'm doing a lot of work with the Division of Forestry in terms of that. And I think I must have about 30 state champions in Ohio now by now.
Wow.
And then national champions, I have 5 or 6 trees. And I'm really into the larger species too, the oaks, the cottonwoods, sycamores, anything that can get huge of proportion or the largest species of its kind. And so it's just grown into like a business basically. And I get a lot of people that hire me to do just consultations on their land and to help evaluate which trees are valuable and which aren't and things like that. And I do tons of lectures. I mean, just tons of lectures on big trees and my finds. And it's an ever growing thing that's going to end up being my final career in my life.
That's so cool. I guess, yeah, that's just amazing that you get to be out in the woods or on a farm and make that your career. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, I'm a true believer too in that, just from hearing witness sightings, most witness sightings occur when people are just out in the woods doing other things, not looking for Bigfoot, but doing what you're doing.
Well, and I always tell people the best way to research your area is hike your area and be as natural as possible and do your normal things, and things will happen if it was meant to be. Exactly. And if you just do that, and be consistent with your area. Don't give up because nothing has happened for, say, 5 years. If you have good areas with good history, it's just a matter of time before something's going to pop. And then another thing, with the trees thing, I wear a lot of Bigfoot t-shirts. So when I'm going out measuring people's trees, I got, Bigfoot t-shirts on, and you should see how many reports I have fielded by people that said, "Oh, I know someone that my brother saw one, or I've seen one, or my aunt's seen one." It just time and time again where people I'm going to look at their trees then tell me a Bigfoot story. So it's just kind of goes hand in hand, which is a big plus.
Wow, that's actually really cool.
That is really cool. So maybe that could lead us into our next question. So when and how did you actually get involved in the subject of Bigfoot? What was that?
That was his big trees.
Yeah,
Ohio
you need to
mug.
get rid of that so we can see Mark.
Hold on, Mark. Let me get rid of this.
My Big Trees Ohio mug.
Okay, show it again.
Go ahead, show it to us.
One more time.
Look at you. That's super cool.
This was done by Melissa Barrickman, and I had her make me some to give to my team, and they're all individually made and they're all unique, the design and everything about it. But she did a beautiful job as always. So thank you, Melissa.
Gosh. She is so creative.
She's super talented.
She's a wonderful person.
Awesome. Absolutely.
Wonderful. But
so yeah, back to the question, Mark. So when and how did you actually get involved in the subject of Bigfoot?
Well, you can thank that to my grandpa Charlie. Back in the the 70s, early 80s, every Friday, my mom and my brother and I would go visit Grandma and Grandpa in Rocky River, Ohio, and I'd always be in the TV room with Grandpa, sitting on his lap watching TV, and we'd always watch like Rockford Files, Sanford and Son, Chico and the Man, and then of course this one show always came in on Fridays with Leonard Nimoy, called it In Search Of. And I remember they were talking about Sasquatch in North America and Canada, and I was just totally blown away. They showed the Patterson film and all that stuff, and I remember looking at my grandpa. I'm like, Grandpa, does Bigfoot really exist? Is Bigfoot real, and is it in Ohio? And he looks at me straight face, and he goes, "Yeah, I think there's Bigfoots in Ohio." He goes, "I've seen newspaper articles over the years claiming Bigfoot sightings, strange ape sightings in different parts of Ohio." And of course, that made me super excited that the following Monday at Hilliard Elementary School in Westlake, Ohio, during our library time, I was in 4th grade. I went to the librarian and asked her if she had any books on like Native American legends and folklore, because I was kind of scared to say the Bigfoot word, thinking it was taboo. And lo and behold, looking up on the library shelf, and I see the Loch Ness Monster book, and all of a sudden I see this. I see
Ooh.
this green that says Sasquatch. And it
Right.
was a hardbound edition of John Green's Sasquatch Apes Among Us. And I remember looking at it on the back of the map back here and
Right.
being Ohio, 18 sightings. And I was like blown away. I
Ooh.
checked it out right away. And I literally, it took me about 3-4 days, but I blew through this book, read everything I could, and I was hooked. And, you know, during my whole life, I was always interested in Bigfoot stuff. And my grandpa was really cool. Like anytime there was any kind of Bigfoot documentary on, he would call up and leave a message and tell me what time and what day. And so I got to
Back
watch
in
a
the
lot
day
of
when
those.
we had to like stop
Yeah.
everything before
Yes.
DVD, you know, or
Yeah. And
VCRs, before
had the
everything.
big
Yeah.
TV guide that you went through to see
Yeah.
what was coming on and all that.
Exactly.
And so I was hooked, and all through school, all my friends knew I was into Bigfoot or Boggy Creek. And I remember when we started, you know, going out with girls and everything like that, whole groups of us would go up to the midnight movies and either watch Boggy Creek or Sasquatch, the one Sasquatch documentary where they recreated the Bigfoot's attacking the camp. And of course, you know, it was just awesome. And then, you know, then of course, as time goes by, you start losing interest in the subject, but I always in the back of my mind, it was in my head. I needed something to spur that moment.
Right. So you mentioned John Green.
Mm-hmm.
What is he one of the early researchers that influenced you, or who are the other
Oh,
ones?
John is, you know, by far one of the most influential people I have ever met in the Bigfoot phenomenon. Very, very friendly, very professional, highly respected, very intelligent, and just a great guy. I mean, anytime I've went out to the West Coast, either with friends or by myself, I was always welcome to stay at the Greens house. And having the opportunity to stay with John and his wife June was amazing. And basically, you'd have open access to his files. And when you get to listen to like the recordings of like the Osman interview or Fred Beck, anything like that, it was just amazing. And you know, so he was someone I really looked up to. Obviously, I knew Grover Krantz. Yeah, and so anytime I got through like up into the Pullman area, I would always stop and see him, and which I did like 3 or 4 times. And Grover, you know, was a very, very driven person in terms of wanting to prove Bigfoot exists because of the flack he was taking from his colleagues and all the pressures he was getting because of his belief, and especially with his dermal ridges and everything. But I mean, he was definitely aimed in the right direction. And I know he wanted to shoot one, but that was because that was part of his way to validate.
Right.
And
Right.
as a scientist, I can understand his thoughts and feelings. I mean, would I be the one to shoot one? Absolutely not. But if for
Mm-hmm.
him, that would be something that, you know, hey, if it happened, it happened. But and then of course, you know, Peter Byrne, everyone, you know, Peter's still around to this day, and Peter's just a super elegant man and very well spoken. Matter of fact, I dig over here. There's one of his books right there, and you know, it's it's an interesting story of Peter and all his trials and tribulations of searching for either the Yeti or the Bigfoot or anything like that, big game hunting. Another great guy. And then of course, last but not least, is one of my favorites is Rene DeHinden. And Rene was he was a fire plug. Rene was the meanest person in Bigfoot you would ever find. And if he was here today, he would destroy the whole community. It just with his words, as he was that aggressive. But he was really a nice guy when you got to know him. I mean, when the real Rene came out, he was super intelligent. He was an expert tracker. And the sad thing for all 4 of them is they never saw a Bigfoot. I mean, they were close. You know, Rene was involved with those Bossberg tracks and tracking it and everything, but it just never happened. So, I mean, you know, in hindsight, I'm just honored that I could have met all of them and got to know them to some point. And, you know, that I can never, you know, I can always know that fact that I was around the 4 horsemen and got to know them. And it was just a special thing.
So, you know, there's like a lot of mention of like these early researchers not getting along. I mean, did you ever witness any of that? Or do
Oh,
you have any
oh,
like stories to share about that?
You know, it literally, John would show me letters that Renee would send him, or Renee would show you letters that he sent to Green, or vice versa, and how much they hated Byrne, and Krantz was an idiot. And even I remember Renee saying something like Krantz was an idiot, although he was okay, which
Right.
you don't know what that means, but yeah, there was animosity all the way around. And I remember saying like a typical logical thing that I thought would be possible, saying, hey, if you four would just bury the hatchet and just work together, maybe this thing could be solved a lot sooner. And none of them wanted any part of that. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
it
I
was
kind of find that's kind of like what goes on even today.
oh
Like
yeah,
you go to like the Bigfoot conference and it's like this is going on and that's going on and this
yeah.
person is it's like, as a woman, it's like, come on, guys, you guys call us emotional,
Well, the thing is, it's not just women drama. I mean, men drama. It's women drama too, and it's women and men and men, women against women.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
mean,
there's a lot of there's some drama going on between
oh yeah,
everybody.
and
Yeah.
and that's why there's going to be no possible way, at least in this day and age, that anyone's ever going to solve this mystery because of drama, jealousy, and not like utilizing tools together that could find the end solution. And
Right.
although you might not get 100% credit for it, but at least you're involved with it. And I think if rather than
Exactly.
take the team approach and do it like that, but it's just never going to work that way because people's feelings get hurt, and
Yep.
all this stuff that just drives me bananas.
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
see
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
if your feelings are hurt, I can drop a box in the mail and stop them up, and you'll be fine.
It's
And
like you're gonna have drama in any situation. There's gonna be feelings hurt. There's gonna be whatever in any kind of workplace. So, my thing
yes,
is this is just research,
Hmm.
and everybody's got to work together, and everybody's got to get along. You
well, and
know,
if you think about Bigfoot, I mean, it's no different than say, let's see this. I love aquarium fish. So an
right?
aquarium fish was a hobby. But even in hobbies like this, there was infighting over who discovered what, who did this, who did that. It's no different than Bigfoot. It's just all this arguing, complaining. When a hobby means the word fun. If you have a hobby and
Exactly.
it's not fun, you shouldn't be in the hobby.
Thank
Go find
you.
something else.
So, Mark, do you think? I mean, I'm going back to when Tom Slick, who was the billionaire who funded a ton of the research in the late '50s, early '60s, I guess. Well, yeah. Do you think that started? If I'm correct, Renee DeHinden and John Green were running one of his projects, and then he brought Peter Byrne over.
Yep.
And Peter Byrne came over and kind of took over the realm. Is that what happened? And do you think
Yeah,
that's what started it?
yeah, and that's what really drove John and Renee mad, was the fact that Slick brought Byrne in and just basically put him in charge when John and Renee were doing all the work. I mean, they did all the footwork, the initial, should I say, research into specific areas and things like that. And then to bring someone in, it was like pulling the carpet out from underneath them. And so the animosity began. And once again, back then, they didn't have emails. They didn't make phone calls because they were a long distance.
Right.
They wrote letters. And so, yeah, that's pretty much what it was, Tim. So, I mean, it's a shame because Slick had a lot of money and he was going to spend it. And unfortunately, he died in a plane crash.
That is a shame. So, getting off into a different subject. So, because you obviously were involved in the BFRO, so
Yes.
if you could first explain to the audience, because I kind of like to try to always touch people who don't know a lot about the Bigfoot world as well as you do. So why don't you explain to everybody what exactly is the BFRO and how did you get involved in it?
Well, that's the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, or BFRO.net. And it was like that first big website that ever came up that was actually fielding reports, investigating the reports, and then the reports they thought were legitimate, posting them for public view so people could read stories on an internet type basis, even though it was dial-up internet back in the day. And that was founded by Matt Moneymaker, who had done a lot of research in Ohio with people like Don Keating and Robert W. Morgan and things like that, and which he was from California. And it must have been around the late 90s when he had reached out to me asking if I wanted to be an investigator for the organization, or we were correlating some emails, and someone else, I can't even remember the guy's name, said, hey, you should ask Matt to be a researcher, an investigator. And eventually I think Ron Schaffner added me. And so I've been active in the BFRO since like probably 2001. And I thought, and I did take like maybe a 3-year hiatus after my first child passed away. I just didn't want anything to do with Bigfoot and stuff like that. So you have to have a mindset for it. And I would be very, very in a depressed state and things like that. But eventually, when I said to Caroline and Matt, hey, I'm ready to come back in, and they just added me right back in, like it was like nothing changed. And I just didn't feel like I could serve the organization not doing anything, basically. So, but yeah, so, and the BFRO, I mean, now that we have investigators not only all over North America, but in other parts of the world too, that investigate any alleged Bigfoot type creature reports. And, the database speaks volumes. I mean, if you can go in, look at your state, break it down to your county and find if there's any reports. And, so it's just a great tool for people to learn about Sasquatch. Right. And to top it off, they do expeditions. And so if you want to live a Bigfoot expedition, you can go on them. I just been on 2 the last 2 weekends. So yeah, you have a good time.
So if you're allowed to mention, I'm not sure if you can, so the BFRO has thousands of reports that are posted to the public. There are other reports though, and I think this is something interesting that maybe the public doesn't realize. Go ahead, Mark.
1%.
Right. So explain that.
Yeah.
What you see published is probably 1% of what comes in. And of that, and even if you do the 90-10 rule, where if you get 10,000 reports and you dump 90% of them right off the bat, you still have, a lot of reports to go through that could be legitimate. And that's the ones that have been actually investigated at the site, witnesses interviewed at the site, recreations done, things like that get posted. So there's a lot more reports out there that are credible, are very credible, that will never be posted because sometimes the witness doesn't want their report posted, for one. And because they just don't want it, because if someone sees the story, a family member might see it and say, that's your story. And then, and cause, chaos or whatever you want to call it. But, let's just say that there's a ton of reports out there that there's just not enough people investigating for the BFRO to ever get their hands, even to make a phone call. That's how many reports come in.
That's crazy.
So, it can get really crazy.
So I remember when we were there for the first Ohio Bigfoot Conference, and we did the advanced hike, and you were there. And that was the first time where I got to hear your first encounter with a Bigfoot that you had in Ohio. Can you share that story with us?
Really? Huh.
What do you really?
Well, I would say
that was a great story.
Well, of course it's a great story because
especially you were telling it in the woods and you were standing on a rock and it was like, but it was a great story.
Well, I'll just say this is that on April 20th, 1997, something followed me and another guy out of the woods, and we separated off thinking it was just deer because there was all this movement up above us. And so the other guy that was with me, I sent him ahead, gave him maybe a 6-7 minute head start as he continued down toward where our vehicle was parked. And as I started walking, something really started moving around up above me. And it was pretty much a game of cat and mouse to a point where in the far, far distance, because the trail was going down a decline heading toward the dirt road, I could actually see the road in the far distance just because of how high up I was. And I made that. I thought to myself, well, geez, and I was really scared because I thought it was a cat because the way
Like
it was
a
stalking.
cougar or like
Yeah,
a
that's because
okay.
there was rumors of like a big cat in the area.
Yeah, not the
And
ones that like the pumpkin spice lattes
No.
at
No.
Starbucks.
Not those, no.
Not that kind of cougar.
No, not at all. And those are easy to pick out. But
Exactly. You can just
but
like entice them in. You can trap them with those pumpkin spice lattes.
well, and my pampered chef too. So
Exactly.
that's the double trap. So, but anyways, you know, it was weird because I thought about running, like just to run out of there. But then I thought to myself, if that's a big cat, it is coming. I mean, you play with any house cat, you throw a toy, it goes after it. If it's you move something back and forth, it's going back and forth. And so I just decided as I was hiking down the decline just to sit on my fanny by some pines growing on the one side of the trail. And I sat there and listened. And it seemed like 3-4 minutes went by, and I really don't know how long it went by, but I was like shocked that I did not hear the movement above me. And I was getting ready to stand up, and right when I was about to stand up, I hear plain as day this crunch, crunch, crunch right over the top of me. And I'm thinking, oh, Lord, this is a person.
So you were facing it?
Well, it was over the top of me on the next little tier of a strip mine. And the strip mines were it was probably about a 12-foot little grade going up. And then it flattens out to another tier. And I was down low. It was up high. And but I could hear it walking right by. And I thought right away, don't tell me it's a person, because a few months earlier, or I was with another researcher from Columbus, and we were over in the same area, but on the other side of the lake. And we were in one area, and my buddy, he was a Columbus policeman, and he goes, just so you know, we're being watched with someone with a gun. And he pulled out his 45, and he told that person, he says, because he knew his gun didn't have any range. He goes, you want to go at it? I'm a cop. And the guy backed off and ran over the hill. Well, he was protecting a pot stash. Oh. And so there's a lot of them there. So when I heard the walking over the top, I thought it was a person. And so when I went to stand up real slowly to look over the top, I'm thinking there's going to be a person standing there. There was nothing. And I was like, what? So I looked down in the distance of the direction of the road. I looked back from the somewhat of a trail I came down, didn't see anything. And as I panned back this way, I saw something squatted down on the hillside a little distance away. And it was so sunny. It was so jet black in color. I thought to myself, oh, wow, a black bear. And I went to take my pack off. And when I did, I made some noise. And when I made the noise, this thing went from compact standing up with its back, stood up like this. And when it did, the sun hit on the side of its head, and I saw the ear and then the flat profile on the face. And it turned and looked at me. And I almost fell off the backside of a strip mine, just the next tier down, because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And it kind of went like, it looked like it opened its mouth like a type thing. And so I try to put my bag in front of me, and I try to reach in for my camera equipment. As soon as I made that move, it turned and walked up the next tier of the strip mine. And lo and behold, the rest was history. And, you know, after having that encounter, it was like 74 feet away. I just, like I say, after seeing that, I realized that some of these people or witnesses are telling the truth. And that sold me, and that's why I'm still here to this day. If that would have never happened, I would have been gone, back to Fish Club or something.
Right. So what do you think Bigfoot are, Mark? If they exist, obviously you witnessed one. So
they're walking on two legs. So they have larger brains. They have to be closely related to people, being walking on two legs. We're the only other thing that does bipedal locomotion. And so it has to be intelligent. I think that when all the land masses were connected from Pangea, and before the ice broke away and the continents separated, I think that along with the native indigenous people that came into the North American continent, I think some of these Bigfoot Yeti type creatures came and followed food too. They were following herds is what they were following, and got isolated over here. And They were here long before we started populating the continent. I mean, it's obvious just in Native American folklore, totems depicting apes that, from 400 years ago, that how would you know what an ape looks like?
Right.
And,
Exactly.
things like that. So I'm going to lean to more of a hominid type creature, and because they're super intelligent, that's very obvious. And they seem to be very family oriented, like we are. So, it's hard to say, and I hope maybe sometime in our lifetime we find out what, but that's just my opinion or theory, and I'm no expert in any way, shape, or form. I'm just someone that looks at the data, looks at the evidence, and tries to make a proper judgment.
So here's another interesting question, because you're our Ohio guy. So why do you think, outside of the Pacific Northwest, that Ohio has the most sightings than any of the other states?
Because Ohio has north water, Lake Erie, south water, Ohio River Valley has north drainage, south drainage. Also, it is the beginning of the foothills of the Allegheny and Appalachian Plateau. So think about this. Why does Ohio have such big deer? A ton amount of food, being still on the plateau edge. 2, tons of water. Our state has tons of water, just lakes, rivers everywhere. 3, lack of natural predators. Well, when you don't have wolf populations controlling large white-tailed deer herds, or tons of cougars running around, except the ones that like Pampered Chef, and if you don't have those running around. So if you can't den a population of deer, the deer population explodes because of the available food for them. Well, the Bigfoots just fit the niche. They just, perfect for coming in. And like I say, they can swim across the Ohio River, be in Kentucky or West Virginia, and be in the mountains anytime they want. And believe me, Southern Ohio has a lot of, I won't call them mountains, but has some very large rolling hills. And so I think that the criteria for a Bigfoot to be successful: plenty of water, plenty of food, plenty of shelter, just an abundance of things. It's all there. Plus Ohio was part of that big oak savanna forest that used to cover the continent. They said that oaks and hickories used to go from the Ohio River all the way to Lake Erie, and a squirrel would never have to touch the ground once. So, that's how much abundance of food or massed on the forest floor there is. And when you have that, you have deer, you have turkey, you have everything eating it. And when you have that, you have Bigfoots hunting them. So
interesting. Okay. So I'm going to change topic a little bit. So I just want you to share with the audience who Don Keating is and how you and he met.
Oh, Don Keating. He's a legend, in my opinion. I call him the Burt Reynolds of Bigfoot. And he always said he looked like Burt Reynolds, so it's kind of a joke. But no, he never pulled up in a Trans Am. I'll just say that. And but no, Don is definitely my mentor in Bigfoot. I talked to him the first time in the late '80s, just by the telephone, and he kept telling me about his monthly meetings that he was doing in little conferences, and I always said I would go to one. And of course, I was young and too busy, running around doing things with girlfriends and stuff like that. And then one day my girlfriend says, "Hey, check this out. It says Bigfoot Conference, Newcomers Town." And I said, "You want to go?" She's like, "Yeah, let's go." And we ended up going down there. I think it was like 1990, might have been 94. I can't remember anymore. And so we go down to Newcomers Town from where we are. Well, of course, the thing I always say is, well, how do you dress for a Bigfoot conference? So
that's what I'm always thinking.
Well,
I gotta leave
so
my
for
cocktail
example,
dress at home.
Yeah, and literally my girlfriend put a dress on, and and I had like a collar shirt with a cardigan and khakis, and and I was super young and fit and everything back in the day. So I remember walking into 624 Heller Drive to go to this so-called Bigfoot conference, and I'm looking at this building, and the building's like literally leaning, and it's like, oh my God, it was like an old Union Hall. Walk into this little tiny hallway and turn right, and there were the people in there, and we walk in, her and I, and these people turn and look at us, and the first thing I thought, oh shit, we're dinner. And
Exactly.
and then all of a sudden, Don Keating looks up and he goes, and he heard my voice because I've talked to him on the phone, and he goes, "Are you Marc Dewerth?" I go, "Yes." He goes, "Oh, hey, Mark, I'm Don Keating," and like all the people that wanted to eat me, all of a sudden like didn't, and the rest was history. So I sat there in that room and we listened to all these people from Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana, I think West Virginia, talking about experiences with Bigfoot. Michigan was there too. And it was just amazing to hear these stories, and just kind of like when the first time you guys went. But think of it this way, at least when you guys went to a Bigfoot thing, you could go on the internet and research stuff and go to, I had nothing other than a few books. So to sit there and go and experience what I experienced was second to none. But anyhow, after that conference, I go to Don. I said, if you ever need any help with any sighting reports, I'd be glad to come down and help. And I don't have any kids right now or anything, and so I have time for this. And so it must have been less than a week or so. He calls me on the phone about a Bigfoot crossing 541 over between Kimbolton and Plainfield, and can I come down? I came down. We investigated the report and interviewed the witnesses, and the rest was history. And Don and I did tons of research from up into the early 2000s. And you know what? And like I say, I mean, Don is should I say, he's a quality human being, and he deserves the respect that he should receive. He's been in this so much longer than so many other people. And even though he took harassment, he got made fun of in Newcomers Town, and he still tried to have the event in Newcomers Town, even though they didn't treat him well. And eventually Salt Fork came around and said, "Hey, why don't you bring that down here?" And of course everyone's like, "Yes, do it. Yes, do it." And the rest was history. But no, Don is definitely, my mentor, for helping me get into this thing and learn a lot about what these creatures are, what they're doing, and where they're at. And like I say, I told him on the phone a few weeks ago, because there were rumors going around saying that I wouldn't allow him having a vendor table at OBC. And I always told him from day one, as long as I'm doing OBC, you have a free vendor table for life. And so I reiterated that to him, and so he knows that. So now it's on a podcast. So I just said, "Don, just show up. There'll be a table for you. You don't have to work."
It's documented.
Yes,
you can't go back on your word now. We got you on video.
Well, and because it was always that same thing. It's just that other people filled his mind with other things, and that's just the thing with this Bigfoot community. Like I say, they're just
And I have to say that I think that the Ohio Bigfoot Conference is probably one of the coolest conferences, because you're in the Salt Fork State Park, where there's actually been sightings of Bigfoot.
Yep.
So not only do you get to attend the conference and listen to all the speakers, but there's vendors there. I can remember sometimes going and just being like, you know what, I need to get out of this conference room.
Yep.
I need to just I don't, obviously you've seen speakers before, so you're just like, okay, you know what, let's get the heck out of here and let's just go for a little quick hike just to get out of here. The park is beautiful. So you go to a lot of these other conferences and you're in the middle of a city.
Yeah.
You're it's in a hotel, so I just think that the Ohio Bigfoot Conference is super special, because it's not just a conference, it's an experience. It's an experience. So, obviously I'm sure that was a part of your thinking when you were choosing where to have the Ohio Bigfoot Conference.
Yeah, when they reached out to Don and offered it to him, I was so glad he took it, because he kind of resisted initially, wanting to keep it in Newcomers Town. It's like, Don, that's like the Egyptians building the pyramid. If you build the venue, they're going to keep coming. And as you can see, that it's just become so big. And I get a lot of people that'll send messages and say, "I wish you would find a bigger event center to hold it." What they don't understand, it's the venue that makes it so popular.
Mm-hmm.
The location, being in the middle of potential Bigfoot sighting area.
Yep.
Being able to stay in a cabin, a tent camp, stay in the lodge, and still walk out of anywhere and go into the woods and have a possibility of an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that hand in hand, that's why I would never move it just because the fact that, yeah, could I sell another 500 tickets for another event? I could sell them in a second. It wouldn't be no problem at all, but I don't want to. And some speakers even said, well, I'd speak a second day if you'd want me to do 2 in one weekend. I don't want to do that. I think when I bring speakers in, they're going to speak, but they're also going to enjoy themselves.
Yep.
And so I don't want to put that burden on them. And, and I know, come on, you're paying them, you're doing this. Yeah, I understand, but there's still people that I respect, people that I call friends. And you know what? Don't want to sit there. Like if I brought, Tim in to park cars or something, I'd only have him do it on a Friday and not on Saturday. I'd be nice about it. So
that's rare for you to be nice, but well, this is on a podcast, and now everyone knows that you're going to have to be nice once in a while.
No, I have my weapon.
So, Mark, I'm going to share briefly for the viewing audience who's watching this on YouTube. Here's just an image of Salt Fork Lodge. Yep. Beautiful, beautiful place. And then maybe we'll talk a little bit. I have a couple other slides here, just to this is just maybe you want to talk about each one of these images.
Well, this is an image before our advanced hike one year, and we had all these people show up for it. So we literally had to break the group, I think, into 3 segments and take one down one trail, take one down the center trail, take one by the other trail. And they all ended up meeting in the same spot, but they got to come in and go out. And the hikes are real popular. It just gets people out, and it happens on Friday morning, like at 11 a.m. We meet in front of the lodge right there where you see at the front there. And people, kids can come, everyone can come. And it's usually like a 3-mile hike. No, not fast paced. You bring a little bag lunch, some water, and we'll take a little break at one point and maybe tell some stories and things like that. But it's just a way to get people in the woods so they can kind of see the ecology and nature that Salt Fork has to offer, especially if you're newbies and everything like that. And good thing to get fresh air, because once Friday evening hits, it starts getting a little chaos, and Saturday obviously is just nonstop chaos.
Right. Yeah. Very cool. See what else we have here. This is an image I took last year, just one of the panel discussions, which was a great group of folks here.
Oh, yeah. The panels are always popular because it gives people the opportunity to ask a question that more than one person can answer. And, so sometimes you'll see differing answers, which is, totally, awesome, because it gives varying opinions, which I think everyone has a right to an opinion and everything like that. But yeah, that's a very popular feature. And, a couple years we've actually done a Sunday event like this for people that weren't able to get tickets and that still wanted to see all these speakers. So I think last year we did the Sunday event, and that was a big hit too.
Fantastic. So I wanted to ask, who are some of the speakers that have been there in the past that we may know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Lauren Coleman, Bob Gimlin. Tom just came as a guest and he did a brief little talk. Lyle Blackburn, Ken Gerhard, Dr. John Bindernagel, Peter Byrne, Micah Sorty. So many. Russ Jones, Mark Mazel. God, there's so many. Obviously, Cliff, Bobo, Matt, Renee, Adam Davies.
You had Daniel Perez.
The late Bill Dringanis, Don Keating, of course, Doug Waller, and I could go on and on. Right. For all the Sibylla Irwin, B. Mills. I gotta think. There's just so many. I'd have to look at my T-shirt.
There are so many.
Robert Robinson from Florida, Dr. David Floyd from Georgia. Let me think. Mike Pruitt.
Matt Pruitt.
Yeah. Sorry, Matt. Matt Pruitt, phenomenal speaker. Charlie Raymond,
phenomenal speaker.
Tom Shea. I see they're all clicking in, but just all the speakers had great attributes to offer, even if they're not the most popular in terms of known and to the biggest known. Everyone offers a varying opinion and viewpoint, and and that's what makes the conference valuable, because you can see these people and you don't have to agree with them or anything, but you get to see what they're doing research wise. Or Dr. Kenny Brown spoke. There's so many of them. Like I said, I'd have to look at all the backs of my shirts to even know that's how many there's been. And let's just say we've been very blessed. John Kirk spoke. Winona, I think, did Winona help him one year as a speaker? I can't remember, but Winona would be a good speaker. There's just a lot of people. John Wilk from Massachusetts. I try to bring people from all over, and there's just so many good speakers, and it's hard to get them all here, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So bringing things back though to Salt Fork and where the Ohio Bigfoot Conference is, what is the history of Bigfoot at Salt Fork?
Well, obviously that used to be a farm, the Kennedy house. It used to be the Kennedy farm. That's that stone house. And that where the lake is used to be farmland.
Right.
And so the Corps of Engineers came in the 60s and converted it to a lake after the state acquired it. And then eventually they in the 70s, they opened up a campground while they were building the lodge. And the week that the campground opened in the early 70s, there were reports of Bigfoots coming right down to the camp, going into the dumpsters looking for food, because these creatures had been living there for so long with no human interference that all of a sudden you put 300 campers in for a weekend, cooking, throwing garbage out, making noise. These Bigfoots were coming right down, and even the Rangers, nice catch, huh?
Yeah, that was a good catch.
Good reflexes.
Yeah. Even the Rangers were having sightings, like where they would drive over there, hit the spotlight, there'd be the Bigfoot. And I mean, there was a lot of reports coming out of there. So, and then the lodge eventually opened when funding was available. And over the years, there was a lot of activity. But back then, I remember Donna and I would sneak into the park and sit there and do whoops. And the ranger would pull up and see it was done and tell us to get the hell out of there. We don't need your kind around here. And now look at it today.
Right.
Yeah. Now they'll just
part of the culture of
because they saw the advantage of what it does for you. And on a side note, Robert W. Morgan also spoke at the conference, and that's one of my books. I was going to say one of my favorites is his book. So, but like I say, definitely a big history, and there's been a lot of good reports, but I will caution people, being popular place to go squatching means it's a popular place for squatchers to hear other squatchers doing stuff and claim it's a squatch, if that makes sense. So keep your skepticals on is what I would tell you, and and stick to your guns.
Right. And everything I hear, though, I mean, obviously you hear that a lot. You hear that, hey, well, you're out there and you may be hearing other people making calls, and it's not really Bigfoot related, although most people still feel they're there and they're still active. So even with all the researchers and the people out in the woods looking for them.
I mean, are there recent sightings there at Salt Fork?
Yeah, and usually the sightings that happen are on the outskirts in the wildlife area, either by hunters.
Huge park. It's a huge. I don't think people understand how huge the park is. It's huge.
It's close to 30,000 acres.
It's amazing.
And that's not counting all the land that abuts it. That's all woods. There's probably 10 times as much land going around there. And once again, water. There's water everywhere.
And deer everywhere.
And deer everywhere. When you have that, you have potential of having Bigfoots. And do they come through there every day of the year? Probably not. Do they pass through? They probably do. So there's always a probability or a possibility, but it's just luck. It's all it is.
It's like getting struck by lightning.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
So I'm going to switch topics again. So social media, how do you feel social media has impacted the subject?
Well, at the beginning, it was in a positive way, because when you're trying to get the word out, looking for sighting information or talking about Bigfoot, it was great. And then as the years have gone by and Facebook saw a real big opportunity, let's say, to make money off this, now they kind of throttle your traffic. Like you'll do a post that you normally would get 500 likes that would only get 20, and then like 3 weeks later, then it goes up to 500 because they finally let it go to other people's walls. And I have a lot of people that reach out and say, hey, I follow and like the page, but I never see any of your posts.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw, because if you don't physically go to the page, Facebook will block it off your line so you don't see it, because they want the creators to pay and do an ad to promote the post only so it gets to the people that already like and follow, which doesn't make any sense. They used to have
something where if you go into the settings and you go to notifications, you can click on all, so you can see all of the posts as they're posted. That's something that I've learned from some of my favorite Facebook groups.
Even that, you don't see them all. They will throttle your page. Like even Big Trees Ohio. Big Trees Ohio has huge amount of followers, and I'll post a tree that gets like 150 likes, and it's like, wow, and only 1,800 people saw the post, and you're scratching your head. 3 days later, it gets shared by the right person, and it goes from 180 to 12,000 likes. Like that.
Facebook is so quirky and so clunky, and I 100% agree.
Well, like I say, as long as you're advertising with them and paying, you'll get it. Believe me. But I wonder if it's even legitimate data. To be honest with you, the analytics is what I'm saying.
Right. So what advice would you give the audience on social media? And obviously, there's people who are potentially hoaxing on social media. I mean, what do you say? How do we look out for things like that?
I think the best thing to do is to it's always smart to be skeptical, for one thing. And two, in terms of the social media access, you got to remember, when you have social media, everyone can post about a story, an incident, an occurrence. But remember, a lot of people also want attention too. So a lot of times what might have been a Bigfoot sighting 5 years later, because of social media, goes from, I just saw something out of the corner of my eye, to actually seeing the creature moving and seeing its face. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. When I interviewed you 5 years ago, you said you just caught it out of the glimpse of your eye, something fly by real fast. Now you're getting face detail and other details that wasn't there. That should be a red flag. And I think it's good to believe. It's okay to believe. There's nothing wrong with that. But I would, like I said, I would always take everything with a grain of salt and have some healthy skepticism. It's only going to make you a better researcher or a better hobbyist, let's say, by really being you should be very, very astute on reading these reports and what's being said, and pay attention to detail. I'm not saying they're all fake, but I'm saying that there's a lot of them that people claim are real or not real.
So what do you think that stems from? Like what is that?
Popularity, attention type needs, maybe someone that's, just needs, to have some fun in their life. Some people just do it to hoax.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of them out there.
Like even going to some of the conferences, you'll talk to people, they'll show you a picture and they're like, oh my God, do you see there's a Bigfoot right here. Do you see his two eyes looking through the trees? I'm like, no, dude, that's just like two dark leaves in the tree.
And then they walk away.
It's
and
like,
they go to the next person.
Yeah.
That's called getting their end result. Like they want that positive result. So until they can find an investigator that's going to say you had a Bigfoot sighting, then that's the one they're going to be behind. I've done that. I've interviewed.
For all I know, maybe that was a Bigfoot that you saw, but I can't see it in the picture.
Exactly.
But I'm not doubting that you saw it. I'm just saying that. Yeah. So there's a lot of that.
I always tell people, say you have a sighting. Broad daylight, get your camera out and it's in the woods, and you end up getting a fuzzy picture. Rather than even sharing that picture, just tell about your sighting and leave it at that. That picture could be something personal. That's it. Because if it's anything blobby or fuzzy, they're just going to make fun of you.
Right. Good advice.
That is good advice.
That's great advice. So what other advice would you have for new researchers when they just want to get involved in doing
I think probably the most important thing is, I mean, this is no offense, but rather than getting all your information from like YouTube videos, I would suggest getting your information from books. because there's a lot of real good writers out there that write books. And I think you're going to find more quality information in there that was actually vetted, researched, interviewed, investigated than what you're going to get on, say, some YouTube channel that's just talking about sightings every weekend. And because it's easy to get someone to talk about a sighting or even have someone fake about a sighting. And as long as they have good music in the background and a good following, people are going to buy right into it. And I think it dilutes the quality of information where, I like a couple of like the newest books I got that I really like was like this one by Dr. Russ Jones, The Appalachian Bigfoot. And then another one I like is The Bluegrass Bigfoot by Charlie Raymond. There's a lot of, anything Lyle Blackburn is very, very well written. I know Tim's come out with a book and it's more about the researchers. So there you go.
Yeah, it's
right
not
there.
about, right. Yeah,
Yeah,
Tim and I are not researchers.
Exactly. You're talking.
We want everybody to get to know you guys.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we want to connect that because you guys are super interested, and I think the world is.
But once again, a book like that serves as a tool for someone that's new. They can look in and say, "Well, hey, there's this, Charlie Raymond from Kentucky. I live in Kentucky. Maybe I should reach out to him." It's always good to try to find people that have a decent reputation and that thoroughly do investigations and are just not armchair researchers. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong for as you get older in life where you can't get out in the woods. That's fine. But those people put in all their field work years earlier, and that's why they're considered some of the experts in the field.
Right. And that was the goal of the book was, I just wanted to help connect people with what you guys are doing out there. I just think, there's a lot of good things happening out there in the research world or the influencer world, and just want to help people connect the dots.
Yeah, to know that there's not just like one kooky guy who believes in Bigfoot and is, that there's like a bunch of you guys and you guys are doing some serious research. No, seriously though. And I think that's a huge part of going to a conference. I think that really changes things a lot. And, that bringing that up as we're kind of like closing things up here, I think that it would be great, Mark, if you could give some advice to our listeners who might want to go to the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, because I remember the first one that we went to, it was so difficult to get a VIP ticket. Like I was like, were we like on the computer trying to do it? And then when it was time to get a cabin, I was like literally at Tim's mom's house, just like calling every minute till somebody answered. It was like trying to get like concert tickets to like see Elton John or something. It was crazy. So I'm like calling and calling and calling. And finally somebody picked up the phone. I'm like, I need a cabin. So like, why don't you give some advice to everybody of like, what's the best way to get Ohio Bigfoot Conference tickets?
Well, obviously they go on sale the first Saturday in December, which I think is the 3rd this year. They go on sale at 12 noon at ohiobigfootconference.com. And when I say they go on sale at 12 noon, they sold out last year in like 90 seconds. Quick. So you have to be ready, refresh your page and be ready to buy right away to get tickets. And, we only have like, under 400 tickets and, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. And then typically anyone who gets tickets, they'll get an email confirming their tickets, and then they'll also get information on how to book a room or a cabin.
Right.
Because one thing I do is I take all the rooms and all the cabins, put them under my name. So you guys can sit there and call every day of the year after the conference and it'll say sold out.
Right.
But when tickets start getting purchased, they'll get an access code and to contact someone I know at Salt Fork that will book you guys. She'll have you on an approval list, or he'll have you on the approval list, and then you can book your accommodations. And then once all my ticket holders have made the decision to either get a room or a cabin or just tent camp or not stay at all, then whatever's left gets released to the public. The rooms do usually the first week of January. And then, of course, everything sells out. And
really quick. Like those cabins go quick.
Yeah.
But the amazing thing, and what's really cool about the conference, one of the other things among many of the cool things is is you got all the vendors there, and so even if you don't get tickets, you can still walk around and meet all the
Oh,
speakers.
yeah.
I mean,
Saturday's open and free to the public, and you can still meet all the speakers. I mean, we have 3 levels of vendors. I think we have 55 vendors scheduled for this year. It's going to be the most we've ever had, all 3 levels. And so you want anything Bigfoot related. I mean, you name it, T-shirts, books, casts, artwork, chainsaw carvings, jewelry, soap, blankets, clothing, everything and anything is there from
I
all these
got
great
like a
vendors.
Bigfoot shaped bird. It was like a bird feeder. It was made out of
Okay.
bird feed. It was awesome. Like you
It
can
was
really get.
it was a suet cake,
It was a
wasn't
It
it?
was a
cake.
suet cake.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you. I
yeah,
can remember the name of
yeah.
it.
So,
It didn't look like Bigfoot like after 24 hours of being
oh, of
outside
course,
and the
of course,
birds that
right.
we have here in southern Delaware, but yeah, it looks good for a while.
Well, I can think of some old birds that do live in an old bird that does live in
Oh my
Delaware,
Oh
but
my
I won't
God.
say. But no, there's everything and anything Bigfoot related you can find at the conference. There's just so many things. It's amazing. Even local honey. Some people do Bigfoot cookies. One guy, we're going to have a new vendor coming in this year. I think it's called Alien Coffee. So he's going to have coffee
Ooh.
there for,
Oh,
to
yeah,
buy.
yeah,
And
like Tim's cousin did the Grassman CBD
yes,
also.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
we
like
had
all
Steve.
kinds of stuff. Yep.
Yes. So there's,
Yep.
and then like I say, there'll be a lot of people, all the speakers will have vendor tables, and other special guests that might not be speaking this year. They'll have tables too, selling, books and whatever they sell, etc. So it's a great family event on Saturday, and there's
Yep.
food trucks outside. So there's food, there's everything. And,
It's a good time.
I they probably get 3,000 to 5,000 people coming through on Saturday, and which is great for the lodge and all the vendors and things like that. So it's like I say, it's just an amazing time.
So again, the best way for people to find to keep up with the Ohio Bigfoot Conference is it Facebook?
Yes, it's the Facebook page is called, and listen carefully, folks, Ohio Bigfoot Conference Salt Fork, and
Awesome.
that's my page. The old page I used to have was called Ohio Bigfoot Conference, but my former partner wouldn't give it up, so he just posts incorrect information on there just for fun. But that's
Again,
Bigfoot drama. Yes.
again,
So
the drama.
Ohio Bigfoot Conference Salt Fork, and
Awesome.
so go over there. I would like and follow and pay attention to everything, because already twice we've done some early VIP tickets for some people. And, I do little things where if you read the whole post, it might give you a key on how you can reach out to get tickets. And then
Ooh,
I
you better
only
read
do,
'em.
and I only do that for newbies, people that have not ever attended. Because what I try to do is every year I try to get about 20 people the opportunity to come for the first time, because they always miss getting tickets. They're not fast enough. They're working. They don't know how to use a computer. So, and those are the people I aim that for, is to give them an opportunity so they can experience it.
Cool.
Well, awesome, Mark. This was great.
Oh
we
my God, we
appreciate
love
it. This hour went
Mark.
fast.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much for being our guest.
Well, thanks for
We
inviting
look
me.
forward to seeing you in May.
Oh, yes. That is coming up. Ooh.
I know it's coming. It'll be here in 6 months before you know
Yep.
it.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. So, but no, I appreciate you having me on, and maybe we'll do it again next year. Who knows?
We
All
will.
right.
Thank you so much, Mark. Have a great
Okay.
night.
You too. Good night, you too.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, Mark.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You rock. Thank you. Mark is just so cool. He's such a great speaker.
Yeah, he does a good job with the conference.
He does an awesome job. He does an awesome job. So we want to thank you guys for being here.
Another episode.
Yep, another episode. Check, we did it. So you guys are probably wondering how to follow us. So obviously you can follow us on Untold Radio AM, and we would really love it if you would like and subscribe and follow us, because we're going to be dropping episodes every week. You can also follow us on Facebook, the Bigfoot Influencers. You can find us on Instagram, the Bigfoot Influencer. You can also follow us on Twitter, which is BF Influencers. And then we also have a website, thebigfootinfluencers.com, and don't forget to try to order your copy of the Bigfoot
book.
Influencers, so you have like Tim, tell us about them.
Yeah, so right now it's still available. We purposely I've not released it on the national, on all the places you can buy normal books.
Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, blah blah blah.
Just wanted the folks, small businesses who have Bigfoot museums. I wanted them to have the opportunity. They all have signed copies, so you can go to SasquatchTheLegend.com. You can also go to the North American Bigfoot Center, their website. You can go to the International Cryptozoology Museum, to their website, and then you can go to Hanger One Publishing as well, and you can get the books at any of those places. They're all signed and inscribed, and just thank you guys for tuning in, and let us know what you think.
Yay, and we look forward to seeing you at the next episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Untold Radio AM. Have a
Bye,
great
guys.
night.